shifting to a fast track of economic and industrial development, which has led to several paradigm shifts, such as education for human development to education for human resource development, education for few to education for many, national to global education, teacher-concentrated education to student-concentrated education. And the next point can be, this is not a new idea, which is privatization. Starting from the Kasturirangan Committee in 1986, followed by the LPG, liberalization, privatization, and globalization, followed by the Punnaya Committee, Yashpal Committee, Swaminathan Committee, the 2018 bill prepared by the MHRD, all has upheld the importance of privatization. The third point is, why private sector? The focus of the state on the higher education has reduced due to the Article 45 of our Indian Constitution, which is totally the focus on the elementary education. But at the same time, the privatization, which is a field of competition, lead to competitive efficiency, where we have universities like Harvard as well as Ashoka.
Amritha Sen was asked a question a couple of years back whether private corporate houses can provide education to 60 crore children of this country, and his answer was, no time in history this can be achieved without state funding. I underline the point, state funding. When privatization of education turns into gross commercialization, the quality of education suffers. This leads to an increase in discrimination and inequality, the basic essence of Constitution as underlined in Article 14 and 15. India aims to become a welfare state, trying to preserve and promote social and economic welfare. Education becomes a component of the same. When privatization actually focuses on the investment part, why do you think they would invest in underprivileged areas? Because the investment scope is very little and the assurance of return is too little. Moving on, so the solution is PPP, public-private partnership.
Thank you. Your time up.
Talking about equality and representation, I would like to say that according to the National Crime Record Bureau, in every minute, 45 students committed suicide. Savitri Bai and Jyotira Phule used this education to relieve the mass from the oppression. And here, under the academic stress of getting into these limited seats, our teens are pushed off limits.
On to you.
Privatization also increases competition among institutions. Don't you think competition could be another factor of suicide? And when competition increases in privatized institutions, the rich becomes richer and the poor becomes poorer. Also, quoting 86th Amendment Act, wherein the free education is given to students who come under the age of 14, the next ages, that is above 15, is not covered. Now they have two options, either to continue with education or to stop their education.
Out to you.
They choose
Thank you.
As you said about the institution in private as well, who is engaged in the suicide rates, I would like to say that the 58% of the suicide rates in IITs, NITs and the central institutions are from the SC, ST, OBC and the minority communities. Where is their justice?
Since you have quoted SC, ST and OBC and minority communities, how do you think they can create a position in privatized institutions? And adding on to my point, I told either they would continue education or drop education and go for unemployment. The former or the latter is fine. But when there is an economic insecurity or financial instability, there is another chance that they engage in terrorist activities and engage with such groups to get economic income.
Talking about efficiency, Eldo Matthews, the Deputy Advisor of Institution of Planning and Administration, said that these top institutions of the government is just confined to 9 states in this highly populated nation. And where is the efficiency? Just because there is insufficient fund and massive bureaucracy.
I would like to ask a question about fake degree scam that has happened in various private universities. Do you think that the quality of students that we produce should be compared with the, is actually shown by the certificate that we hold? So what is the validity of your certificate?
Private institutions enjoy autonomy and their decision making can be regulated and they can administer it in their own methods. And the government institutions are also tangled within the scams like the Haryana teacher recruitment scam, the Vyapam scam and all those.
Program for International Student Assessment. Now once we assess this, we see that China and Singapore are the top scorers. This is because China is actually going for deprivatization and demarketization of institutions, whereas Singapore is giving free education to its citizens.
Okay.
What about decentralization? When the government cannot afford the funds for education, then there is this. Then there is privatization. Then the decision making is distributed among the local levels. So there is decentralization, which affects the academic freedom.
Why do you think decentralization is the only factor that affects the quality of education? The number of researches that has been published is one factor that determines the quality of education. The intelligent quotient, the emotional quotient, and the social quotient also affects the quality of education.
Decentralization as well as the quality of the teachers also matters in the quality of the higher education. According to the study of the Botswana, Education Department Botswana, they says that the effective teaching methods of the private sector are much higher than that of the public sector.
While politics in colleges improves the efficiency of a student to compete in practical environments, don't you think privatized institutions actually produces rote-learned machines?
What
Yes.
about red tapeism and procedural complexities in our government institution when there is delay in the result publication as well as course completion? This entirely shows the inefficiency of the government institutions.
With about 4,000 seats vacant just in Kerala, what do you think is the need for privatized
Thank you.
institutions?
And your time up. Kindly come forward, both of you. Please come forward to the center stage. Shake hands. Thank you so much for being here.